I love doing things for them. Because
Mm.
they're so loving, I think they just bring out so much maternal instinct. I don't think I had that much maternal instincts before
Yeah.
having espresso and martini. Like I've never had this weird kind of guilt going to work where I'm like, oh, I wonder if my dog's alone. Or like, what would they be doing? Or like, when you're buying cutesy things for your
Oh,
dog,
yeah.
it was just they changed my entire life for the better, and I would never have it any other way.
Hello, humans and puggies. Welcome to the Pug Life show, brought to you by Pug Parties. Because your pug deserves to be the best dressed at the porty, and you can check out their outfits at pugparties.com. I'm your host, Donna, and with me are my puggy co-hosts, Rosie and Kenji. Now, it's our first pug interview for 2024, and it's a PAWSOME one. How could you not love it when you're talking to pugs with names that said in quick succession means a tasty adults-only drink, Espresso Martini? I can only imagine how much fun Gurvinder, their Pug-mom, has calling their names when they're running amok at playgroup WhittlePug. I think you're going to love getting to know how Martini and Espresso got their names. And I think you'll also be very interested to hear all about Espresso's IVDD and how Gurvinder is managing it. So make sure that you listen all the way to the end. But before we zoom in and get to know Espresso and Martini better, I want to remind you to subscribe to our newsletter in the show notes so you get advance notice of our next episode and much, much more. Hello, Gurvinder, and welcome to the Pug Life show. That's yourself, Martini and Espresso. As we were talking just before the show, I decided to say it the other way around, just so that everybody was aware that there are two pugs and we're not actually on the wrong podcast and we're talking about our favourite drinks. Because I don't mind an Espresso Martini.
I don't either.
But we'll get to their names in a minute because I absolutely love them. But the first thing is probably actually no, we'll flick the questions around a little bit. Tell us about Espresso and Martini, what they look like, what their personalities are, and why those specific names.
Yeah, it's lovely to meet you, Donna. And with Espresso Martini, they're just so different. Um, just like we were discussing earlier, no two pugs are alike. So
Mm.
Espresso has started to look a little bit salt and pepper. So he's a little bit of a gray fox, if I might put it. He is very handsome. We've always said this about Espresso that he's like a handsome pug. But yeah, so he's starting to look a little bit like that. He's a little bit chubbier, a little bit on the chubby side. And Martini they're both black pugs. And Martini is a little bit sleeker. And my little fashionista, she's really loves her toys. So she's got a very different personality than Espresso, where she plays fetch, she plays with her toys. She also loves chasing birds. So she can spot a bird from a mile away. So she
Oof.
actually spots them while we'll be sitting inside the house. She'd spot them on our neighbor's antenna and would
Yes.
go off at the bird and would not stop till the bird doesn't leave. And she's actually genuinely pissed that the bird is there. And I'm like, what? Like, how are you spotting this bird? And
I
Espresso
do
is
love
white.
that though they bark as though, "Why aren't you hearing me? Get off that wall."
Or like, why the hell are you not giving me the reaction I want you to give me? Just like, why aren't you startled? And just like, she's just so full of energy and yeah. And I think Espresso has mellowed down over time. But in the beginning, Espresso is your food lover pug. So
Mm.
all the mischief that he's gotten into has been all around food. So once he came into our room covered in yogurt, like his face was all like, and
When they're black, it's so much more noticeable.
it was so funny. And we were like, what happened? And then we realized that he's actually like gotten into the trash, gotten the like yogurt box out, and
Oh,
put his entire
no.
face in it. So he's when very all of his like naughty stuff is around food. And once he got into a whole margarine tub,
Oh
then
my
he
god.
got on the bed and vomited the
Oh, no,
margarine.
that's actually it's like it's double punishment as a parent when I will share a story with you about, because we were talking about the fact I've had a couple of black pugs.
Yes,
They've all
yes.
been boys. Actually, I shared 2. My first black pug, Lewis, who I told you was never naughty, but my father, they connected unbelievably. My father, the first Christmas we had with Fat Dog, decided to debone the turkey because, of course, I grew up in Tasmania around farms. So these turkeys
Ah,
are like farm-sized turkeys. They're not the turkeys that you get in
oh,
the supermarket. So he had to take out the carcass so that he could fit the turkey into the oven. It was so big.
oh,
So
okay.
he'd taken out the carcass and then thought it would be a funny idea to then give it to Fat Dog, which was Lewis's nickname. And so we've got photos of this tiny little black pug with his head stuck in the cavity of the carcass of this turkey. And it reminded me of that Mr. Bean Christmas special where he got like an entire turkey stuck on his head and he's running around his apartment with this turkey on his head. And I'm just sitting there and I'm
Oh my
laughing,
god.
thinking, I need to go and save him from himself, but I can't stop laughing at the fact that he was just and his little eyes were just like this was like every shitty Christmas that he'd had in the 7 years prior to us rescuing him had just gone by in the poof of smoke with this massive turkey carcass. He just didn't know what to do with it. It was just incredible.
He'd
Um,
probably be so excited. I just can imagine the amount of excitement with his eyes going like, oh my god,
Oh
oh
my
my
god! Oh my god! And then, of
god.
course, my second boy, as we were talking about before, like no 2 pugs are the same. Winston, the very naughty black pug, he got into my sister's compost bin, and we know now what we did not know back then, which is that compost is actually quite toxic to dogs, and it could have killed him.
Yes. Yes.
Luckily, well, luckily for me, because I was away for work at the time, not so lucky for my partner Andrew, he'd picked them up on the way through from we'd been away from the weekend. I was staying up in Sydney for work. He came back, picked the boys up on the way through, and my sister had said, "I'm so sorry." Like he got into the compost bin. He looks okay, he hasn't done anything. I tell you what, by about 10 o'clock that night, he was no longer okay. Andrew said, I've never seen so much vomit come from such a tiny body over the space of about 5 hours. So every pug bed in the house and like
Oh,
everybody, we had them spread
oh,
throughout the house. Every pug bed was covered in vomit. And so he ended up having to take the next day off from work because he was so worried. A, that there were no more beds, so they all had to be washed, and B, that he might. And that little bugger lasted like another 10 years.
wow.
He was the pug with 9 lives. So espresso getting into yogurt and Christ, it just doesn't surprise me. It's got to be a black pug thing.
Got to be. And then, and he's done something very similar, which I would never mention that, get emotional, but I'll tell you. He got into a bar of 80% dark chocolate.
Oh
Now, this was inside a lunchbox carrier that
my god.
he tore the lunchbox carrier, then tore the box, then got into this. But the fact that, I mean, just, it was so horrific. because I came home and he was like being excited because we just come back, and I was like, something's off, and I just
Yeah.
that parent instinct
Mum
really
knows.
strongly.
Mum knows.
Mom knows it's really strongly kicking in. I'm like, something's off, something's off, something. And like I find just one tiny so we didn't even find wrappers. He's
Oh,
eaten the wrapper as well.
oh, yeah.
There's like there's like a tiny wrapper. I'm like, there was a chocolate in here. And then we ran with him. Like I'm like driving on Plenty Road.
A mad
And
lady.
yeah, on like a mad lady on Plenty Road. And my husband's like, "You gotta take the deep breaths, it's gonna be okay." I'm like, "Ah!" And we go into emergency and then they take him right away. And turns out, yes, he's eaten the whole bar. He puked 3 times. They like pumped him. And
Yeah.
they were like, "We have never seen this much chocolate come out of a
Oh,
dog."
man.
And this is like I had only had him for a year at this point, and I'm just like, I'm a terrible parent. Like
Oh, yeah.
I'm like just so pathetic. Like just can't do
Pug
it.
mum
Like I'm like
guilt is real.
so much guilt coming through. And then and then and then they were like they gave him a morphine drip, so he comes back as wobbly.
Oh, he's
It's
just
like
high as a kite.
yeah,
Oh.
and he cannot he and I'm just so terrified, and they're like, "You have to observe him for 24 hours," and we were supposed to go to a festival that night. We cancel everything.
Oh, yeah, good.
We have suddenly become the people that are, "My dog is sick, I'm not going to come anywhere."
I've done it many a time over the years. I'm with you. Pug comes first.
Absolutely, and then he was fine, like, luckily, like, he's still around and, like, he stayed
Yes.
yeah, so he was definitely blessed with another life that day, I would say, like,
And I think
someone was looking
sometimes
out for him.
whenever someone says to me, like, "How much is it to own a pug?" And I said, "It's not really like how much is it own a pug? How much is it to own a dog? Figure that out and then multiply it by 2."
Mhm.
And I said, that's pug ownership, whether you like it or not. But if you're not budgeting at least one emergency trip in their lifetime, then you're not budgeting right."
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Especially it's no matter how hard you work at removing all of these things. Like, people talk about toddler proofing a house. I'm like, you gotta pug proof it. Like, the even my partner, he was like, the bins that we had at the time were specifically purchased because they were taller than the pugs at their
Same.
extension. Yes.
Same, I
And
have that in my house now. Like,
yeah,
I went through 3 different bins to to figure out
trying to figure out the right
to figure out which one he will not be able to get into. 'Cause he was
Yeah.
so smart. First, we got a tall one, but he was like, he can topple it. So he like used to
Oh,
go. He's like, if
yep.
I go hard enough, it's just gonna fall on the ground. So
Yep.
he's like smart that way. Then we're like,
Determined.
okay, so we need like a large select. Like it was such, and when you talk to other people that don't own pugs, they're just like, oh, okay, we just never had
It's
those
so
issues.
much effort, and I'm like,
Yeah,
You you don't understand the psyche of the pug. But Winston and Charles, I have to admit, like, Winston was definitely the bin chicken, for want of a better term, but we used to have low ones, and because Fat Dog was never a bin pug, so we were really lucky. Um,
mhm.
but then we got Winston and Charles, and we had the dual bins where you've got, like, they're
Yes,
quite short, the pedestals.
yes,
One's
yes.
one's for food, one's for recycling. And we actually caught him. And I said to Andrew after we caught him, so he'd figured out that if he puts both paws on the pedestal, the lid flips up. But because it was only him and he was so short, he couldn't get his head into the bin. So then what would happen? And I went, talk about bad parenting. The first time we saw him do it, it smacked him in the head, obviously, because he then took one of his paws off to get a paw to lever himself up into.
Ah.
And of course, because 'cause he'd taken off one of the paws, that was not enough pressure to keep it open, so it smacked him on the back of the head, and so, of course, we had a bit of a snicker to ourself and all that sort of stuff. And then I said to Andrew, "We're gonna have to get better bins because he will figure out now that he's figured out what the pedestal is for, he will figure it out." And Andrew was like, "No, no, no," and I went, come off it. We've had them for a couple of years now. You've seen the determination. And so it took him another 6 months, but I come home and the entire contents of the bin was strewn throughout the kitchen.
Mhm.
And Andrew was like, "How did he manage to do that?" We caught them, like, we started watching them a little bit more closely. And so what he'd done was he'd co-opt his brother. So Charles would come over, he would put both paws onto the pedal, which would then lift up the lid, and then that
Oh.
gave Winston the free paws to then get into the bin and just
You
and
know,
so
I
surprise,
had
surprise.
people use the adjective, "Oh, pugs are a dumb dog," and I'm like, "No, because 'cause
No.
you're, like, measuring intelligence, like, on a very different like, it's like measuring intelligence on a different scale, like, it takes a genius to figure that out."
To to expense that amount of concentration and persistence to get to the end state, and I think it's not even, I mean, I agree, they're very intelligent, but it's just that because they have a different target. Like,
Yes.
they're difficult to train, but they're only difficult to train if you don't feed them food.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
just just accept that if you want your pugs to behave a certain way, like sit and all that sort of stuff, you've got to give them food. They're not the ones for petting and all that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
Once you understand that's their key motivator to everything in their life, then you're fine. Like, you can get
Yep.
most things done. But, it's absolutely incredible. I mean, I love that espresso, 80% dark chocolate, like, at least he went for the good stuff.
Yes, he's a gourmet pug. It's just brie or nothing.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
No, he
sort of so how did you come up with the names? What is it about espresso and martini?
well, they both had rehomed pugs, and Espresso came with the name Espresso, and we just loved it. We were like, "We're not, yeah, just love this name." And because he was going through a lot of change, so he was rehomed when he was 2.
Mhm.
Um, I decided I'm not gonna like mess with the name because initially the name we had in mind was Toothless because you can't really see his teeth. And that's the name of this dragon from a series, and we were like, oh, that's be such a cute name. But he was actually he's a very sensitive pug. His first month was very hard. He
Mm.
actually didn't sleep, cried a lot,
Oh,
kept going
blimey.
to the balcony and waiting and thinking that this family is going to come back. And at one point, I decided that maybe it's not going to work. Like maybe the rehoming is just not going to work. And but then I think in a week's time, we saw a turnaround. I still remember the first time he came up on the couch and cuddled next to me, and I was like, okay,
Oh,
'cause we
it's
had his
just so
we bought a
lovely.
bed, we had the toys there, and he was not really playing, and he was,
Mm.
sleeping. He wasn't really sleeping on the bed, and turns out he was being raised as an outdoor pug and,
Oh.
didn't really understand what the outdoors are
Yeah.
and what the indoor is. So he was like we had to retrain him
Wow.
with, like, potty training and, like, just the
Mm.
whole, toilet training thing, have we had to go through that with him. But you know what you said about training pugs, training pugs. I remember having actually got a trainer in because I was struggling. I was like, this dog is so stubborn. Like,
What am I doing wrong?
yeah. And then this guy was like, chicken breast, little pieces, like cut it out and have little pieces
Yeah.
ready. And I'm going to come to your house. I'm like, okay. And then he said to me, what are you talking about? This is a really easy dog to train. Just use food. And I'm like,
Motivation.
oh, okay. And then, since then, I have actually really had I would say, a change of perspective. They are really easy to train. You just need to
Mm.
have low calorie treats, and we don't want them to gain weight. But yeah, so we got espresso, and then I remember, like, I think this was mid lockdown, and we used to take espresso for a walk, and there was this bunch of tradies, and they loved espresso. Every time they'd be espresso, and sometimes they were drinking, but we were like, anyways. They just loved his like whole demeanor, and he had a dachshund. And I remember one of his friends said to us, and this is my favorite story. He's like, if you ever get a second dog, you have to name that dog Martini because espresso martini.
Yes.
And I was like, this is genius. Like I love this idea. And I had in my mind that I did want to get a girl dog because I
Yeah.
was like, I grew up with a male dog and then Espresso was a male as well. When we were getting Espresso, there was no criteria other than the fact that I just loved the smooshy faces. So I was
Yes.
like either Frenchie or a pug. Yeah.
Mm,
But then we got Espresso and we just fell in love with the pug, like the pug mentality, the pug. And
yeah.
we were like, has to be another pug. So when we're looking for Martini, we find this little girl. Her name's Pepsi. She's 11 months old. And we do a meet and greet because that my biggest thing was I'm getting this for Espresso because I felt like
Yep.
my instinct was he's lonely. I was like,
Mm.
I'm really seeing a decline in his mood and like he just feels like he's lonely. And they instantly click. They meet, they're playing, and I'm like, this is great. And then we get her and turns out and she took really well to the name Martini. So
Oh,
the
that's good.
transition was
Especially at that age
really
is good, yeah.
yeah, the transition was really easy and she's got the Martini personality, it's fierce. Just like giving no one the time of day. Every WhittlePug meeting, which is where we meet other pugs, she's
Yep.
like actually forcing everyone into a chase. Like and I remember the last time we were there, I think Giuliano made this comment. Everyone's going home tired because of Marty. She just like started these circles of chase.
Yeah.
And yeah, so she's got this perfect personality to go with Espresso because I think when they start to age, they start to slow down. But I feel like sometimes they get more almost like detached. Like, he was not caring about his toys and I was really
Mm.
seeing a low and I was really starting to think that, that but now that there's competition, yeah, he's protective about his toys. He's not going to share his bed. But I think mostly he's fierce about not sharing his dad. And he's just like, you can have mom, but dad's mine.
Ah, daddy's boy.
Yes, he's very much a dad's boy. And then other times you see him like get really territorial around me as well. And he'd just be like, just go away.
Just
You can see like the real grandpa.
"This was
Why?
mine first."
Yes. I think the first week he really loved having Martini. And then the week after, the fight started happening.
Mm.
And you were saying baby proofing. Funny, we couldn't get anything to separate them. So we had a baby gate
Yep.
in the house.
I've got
And
I've got a portable one for when we have rescues coming and staying. Because yeah, there are times where it's like, "Right, time out everybody. You go to your corner. You're going in your corner." Just
and it's so funny because we don't have any kids, but that we have 4 children, and they
Yep.
they really do act like kids at times. Like they would fight over a single piece of goat horn when there's definitely 2.
Yes.
Definitely both of them have their own. But no, because this one has like, I
This
want
this
this
one
one
tastes
better.
better.
Yes.
Yes.
So yeah, that's their personalities, and I really love their names. Definitely, I think they're definitely giving these personalities, and yeah, Espresso is definitely very like bougie pug. I would say, like just like looking down on everyone. Ew. She's like,
He
ah,
knows his
ew.
place. Very
Yeah,
confident.
very confident, very golden child. Doesn't want to share his spotlight. But then he's starting to accept Martini because we've only had her for a year.
Mm.
So it's been a year of transitions but I think he's now starting to accept her and you see and every time they snuggle together, you're just like
Oh, they just
best decision
they
ever.
oh, yes. It's so beautiful. The pug pile is just one of the nicest things I ever see when you've got like, we've got 4 at the moment, 2
Oh
rescues
wow.
and then Kenji and Rosie, and it's so nice when they do the pug pile because it's just sort of like, yeah, you may hate each other's guts over meal times, but, like, when it really matters, everyone's happy to snuggle up side by side and keep each other warm.
It's the sweetest thing. And we've also seen Espresso comforting her. So if we so we and I know you won't judge me for this, but
No,
we have a
never, never.
camera. We have a
Oh,
camera
yes.
system. And every time we go out, we turn the camera on and it gives out treats.
Yep.
So you can throw treats at them but because Martini's more like, she's more active right now. And so we put her in the crate and she feels safer in the crate as well. And Espresso is just on his bed. But we have seen him go to her if we leave and just like stand there. And you can see him like really worried and concerned and like really pushing himself towards the crate. It's just the sweetest thing ever. They comfort each other and they have conversations. And I just really love that we just made this decision. Because I was listening to your podcast, it's like, is one pug enough? When do you decide to get
It
a
is.
second pug? And I think for the longest time, it was not even so much about that one pug was enough. We just felt like, are we ready to take on another responsibility?
Mhm.
And but it was just the moment it happened, we were like, "Oh, this is just like, I think it's easier. The second transition's easier because our
Yeah.
habits have already evolved around the dog." So like,
Yes.
oh, every Saturday, oh, dog park time, or like, we've already transitioned. Oh, we have to go to
Already
the
planned it.
beach. Yeah, dog beaches. You're so much more, so much
So much
more.
more prepared.
Yes.
And I
So,
think it is true. I don't think I've ever spoken to a person, whether it's on the podcast or through play groups or whatever else, or even with the work that we do with Pug Rescue, in that no one's ever said the biggest mistake I ever made was getting a second pug.
yes.
It's um, even like for us going from 1 to 2, Fat Dog was never going to be a 2 pug. He'd had so much abuse that I just don't think that he would have been able to have sort of dealt with another
Mm,
pug. It wouldn't have mattered how empathetic that other pug was. It just would have
mm,
been so much for him. And at the time, I was in the Navy and I was pretty much single. So it was just me and Fat Dog. And so it was a pretty good one for one
mm,
ratio. But and then I had a couple of years between when we lost Fat Dog and then we got Winston and Charles because I had to go back to sea and I was started living with my partner, and when he turned around to me and said, "Hey, how about we get 2 pugs this time?" I was, like, internally doing the puggy dance. "Yes, 2 pugs, woohoo!" And externally, I was like, "That sounds like a great idea." Don't get too excited. He might he might change his mind. Lock him in first.
Inside you were
Get
having
him to
zoomies.
the And it is, it's sort of like and then you just sit there thinking, like, once you sort of and you're right, like, once you get the hang of 1 and then you sort of get 2, you just literally think to yourself, why did we only ever want 1?" Like, it's just even though I have to admit, Andrew was like, "Oh, 1 for each of us." It never works out that way. Andrew,
Mm,
having not been a pug lover as long as I have, was unaware of the pug to human process and that it's not you choosing the pug, it's the other
mm,
way round. So if they both turn out to be mummy's boys, then suck it up, you'll always be number 2. But luckily, when we got Rosie, who we actually got for Charles, which was when I did the podcast about Is One Enough,
mm,
um, the we weren't particularly ready to get another pug, but it was almost like the universe said, "Sorry, guys, it's actually not about you. It's about Charles, and he is really lonely. And so I'm going to give you the opportunity to take another pug in." And so Rosie was our only rehome, but was just the right decision. It was the right
mm.
decision at the time. And at the end of the day, Charles was just so happy that we just went, "Oh, we can't let her go home now." Like, if even if they come back and they say, "Want her back?" We're like, "Not sorry, Charles has said." But even and then sort of when we lost Charles, to old age, Kenji was a foster fail, so he was our first foster with Pug Rescue. Rosie loved him so much that it was just sort of like, if that pug could get up onto the bed and, like, slit our throats, she would have. If we'd allowed Kenji to be adopted by somebody else, I reckon she
Mm.
would have killed us because and so and so we've just come to accept that although we may not be ready for another pug when we lose one, it's not about us. It's about the fact that these guys get so used to being in a pair that when they're no longer in a pair, it's almost like a gaping it's a bigger gaping hole for them than it
Mm.
is for us.
That's
And
right.
so
If
and
we're struggling to, like, I'm struggling to picture this, like, but I feel like we will be exactly like you guys are, because I just see how attached Martini is to Espresso, and Espresso's 7 now. But because of his IVDD, we sometimes just don't know. We're sitting in a lot of uncertainty, and she
Mhm.
can't be by herself. She's totally dependent on him. Like, just
Oh.
looks for
Mhm.
over for him for reassurance at times. At times she's just gets confidence with, like, her brother being there. Once I dropped her off at a doggy daycare because I don't remember exactly why. I think we were trying to get her to be more social. I don't know. But I was in a whole day training at my workplace, and yes, my husband took espresso for his office, and then we were like, we'll drop.
Mm.
She actually sat in a corner and did nothing
Oh,
the
puff.
whole day. And I just, like, my heart kept sinking, thinking, oh my God, she's like not doing. And then
Oh.
and then I picked her up and she was just fine. She was just
It
and the moment she came home, she was just like licking espresso, and you're like, oh
oh my god!
no, we can't
Don't leave
have
me
it.
ever again. Oh, it's just
Yeah. It was so hard. And we never have ever left her at doggy daycare after that. We're like, no, we can't
never
have it.
again. Never
Never again.
again.
So
But you did mention IVDD. So what is that? Explain it for those
yeah.
that are uninitiated.
Yes, so it's intervertebrate degenerative disc disease.
Yeah.
And the easiest way that I explain it to people is like how humans can have slip disc,
Yep.
and which is like one of your vertebrates, and similar to that, but except within pugs, it can be triggered with, like, I we didn't actually know this because Espresso was our first pug, but he used to go a lot. We lived in a house which was a townhouse, so
Mm.
we reckon it's gotten triggered with a lot of, like, flight of
Mhm.
stairs, and what it has ended up doing is nerve damage in his back legs. And the early signs were completely missed because nerve damage is like a dual-edged sword where the dog's not in pain.
Mhm.
But because the dog's not in pain, you are also not picking it up
Yep.
because he's not in pain. And he's particularly really bad at this. And the doctor's like, I'm just so confused because he doesn't give you general signs of pain.
Mm.
So he's very good at hiding it. It progresses. So for I think in the beginning it was like his a lot of slipping.
Mhm.
Um then now it's looking like, both legs showing delays, and sometimes, like, not being able to we're seeing signs where he's not being able to bend the back legs.
Mhm.
And yeah, so the progressions can look very different for different dogs. But yeah, some of them develop bowel incontinence, then the other ones develop, you know, urinary tract infections because they can't control urine.
Mm.
So we're very lucky that I would say lucky and committed. When we first found out, actually, we had to make a lot of changes, just so many changes.
Mhm.
He was not crate trained, and the doctor was like, "You have to do that, like, even if it's really hard, even if he cries, you'll have to do that because he needs his backrest." So that was one of the biggest change. But I remember when she first told me about it, I just got into the car and cried so hard
I would too.
because I was just like, why is this little thing going through so much?
Like, yes.
Why are they, why do they have to go through this? Just like, and also because the first dog we had was a German Shepherd. And
Mhm.
before he passed, he developed those bowel legs.
Mhm.
So for me, it was like a lot of stuff coming up when they first told us that.
Mhm.
But then we got really committed to it and we took him to rehab and we freeze his peanut butter and make him do exercises. And I think it was absolutely not possible without my partner because the irresponsibility just became like really 10 times the moment that diagnosis happened.
Mm.
And part of rehab is also laser, which helps reduce inflammation. So it can cause the pressed disc can cause inflammation,
Mhm.
and he's currently doing hydrotherapy on treadmill
Oh,
to
nice.
increase his muscles. And yeah, so it's just management for now, but just yeah, what a roller coaster to be on
Oh,
with
yeah.
these little creatures that just come into your life and just become your
And you just
family.
yes, and you just wanna cuddle them
Oh yeah,
all
I
day long.
the amount of times I like hold him and sometimes just start crying, thinking, "Oh my god, I'm gonna be around forever." Just
I know, I know.
it's so hard. Mm,
Oh, no. That's
yeah.
thank you for sharing that because I am sure that Charles had a degeneration of his spine, and we similarly, we had to go out and buy ramps for every and we're on a split level house, so but we had to buy ramps for everywhere around all the back doors, into the garden, the ramp up onto the couch. And then we got the Puggy Buggy, which he initially absolutely detested, but similarly, sort of the vet was advising, like, he has to go for his walk, but you will see when he starts to flag, and then that's when he has to get up and get into the stroller so that he can enjoy the rest of the walk, but he's enjoying it comfortably.
Mm.
And yeah, it was kind of in some ways a bit of a matching of the wills, but after a couple of months, he just figured out that, you know what, this is probably not so bad after all. Um,
We went
but no,
through
I
something
can
similar with boots. Espresso hated shoes, and he had
oh,
to be in
yes,
shoes because
to help with the grip.
grip, and also like because most houses have wooden floors.
Mm,
And we are now in a yeah, we couldn't take us we can't live in a townhouse anymore
yeah.
after that diagnosis. So we made this whole life change, and but he's now accepted the boots, and he's actually like, oh, they're not they're not
They're
that
not
bad.
that bad.
Yeah. He's like,
I
um
could not get Charles to wear them,
oh, okay.
no matter what. We even investigated in the paw stickers,
Yes. Yeah.
couldn't no, would chew them off.
Oh, okay.
And so I just went, "Okay, I would prefer you not to chew the pads of your paws." And so we just sort of went so we got lots of runners through the house and then just accepted that whenever there was a little accident, because obviously he towards the end, we think the message between his brain to his bowel
Mm,
was misfiring, so by the time it
mm,
actually got through that I need to go to the toilet, he'd get up and start going towards the back door, and then he'd just go to the toilet, and he'd see on his little face, "Oh, I didn't mean to do that," and he
mm.
knew that, but it was just and we were like, "No, no, puppy, it's okay," and so we got belly bands and all that sort of stuff to make it, but I agree, it's incredible the things that we will do to make their life as easy as possible so that it's that quality of life thing, and I know personally, moving house to accommodate my pug, I wouldn't have blinked either. I would have just done it.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember like moving and in Melbourne's market as well. Like
Mm,
I remember we were looking for houses, and we did get two townhouses that looked really great. And there was not even a debate. I was like, it's not going to work for him. We can't. And
yep,
if we ever get to a point where we can be house owners, I know for a fact that we
split
will
level.
get a single floor house. We
Yep.
can't, it's just his needs come first. And you would do that for, your human baby as well.
Mm,
So why not? Yeah.
yep, agreed. Now having said that, it's usually the first question I ask, which is why I'm now going to ask it. What inspired you to be a pug parent? I know what
Uh,
inspires you now, but what was the thing that made you wanna become a pug parent?
I think I don't think I think it was just like I wanted to just be a dog parent. But after having espresso, I think I was like, okay, no, I want to be a pug parent. Now I'm very sad that I want pugs for the rest of my life. Um, but before that, I was like, oh, dogs, yeah, just any dog. But I think when we were just like, if I was to match who I am as a person to my core, just like, someone so loving, so much love to give. And I've never seen a personality like a pug. And it really does
Unique.
inspire me to, yeah, now be a pug parent. In the beginning, it was just like, oh, you have an idea of a dog. And, the
Mhm.
idea of, and I tell this to my sister all the time. And the idea of the dog is like, you're going to have this dog and it's going to just, be all over you and going to love you and stuff. And in the beginning, because we went through the adoption rehoming thing, that was not our reality. So it was just like,
Mhm.
oh, this is not what. But I think the transition makes it even much more sweeter when the dog actually does start to develop that kind of loving feelings for you. And yeah, they're just the unconditional love they have for you. I know other dogs have unconditional love too,
Yep.
but just the devotion you see from a pug is amazing. Like, for example, yesterday I went to for drinks at a colleague's. I think Espresso Martini waited at the door for me for 3 hours. She would not engage in play, which she loves doing. Like I was saying, she loves her
Yeah.
toys. But because her mom was not there, she just was like, no, I just want to wait for.
Oh,
You just don't see that kind of. I feel like I have not seen that kind of love and devotion from any other breed. They're just truly something else.
yes.
And they don't have any like they don't have any aggression towards anyone. Like I feel like if the families that have rehomed Martini and Espresso today were to come and say to us, would you like to meet? Like we would like to meet them. I reckon they would still have that kind of love and affection, but they would just come
Mhm.
back to us.
Yep.
Because they're just so forgiving and loving.
Yes.
I've never had like if they accidentally bite my finger, you can see that they're genuine.
Yes, they know.
They're like genuinely upset with themselves,
Yes.
or
Or
like
even worse, you tread on them and they look at you and you're like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry." They're like, "It's okay, mum."
yes, yeah. So just like I don't think humans can have that much of devotion.
Hell no.
So all of those things make it inspire me and just you know but also I love doing things for them. Because
Mm.
they're so loving, I think they just bring out so much maternal instinct. I don't think I had that much maternal instincts before
Yeah.
having espresso and martini. Like I've never had this weird kind of guilt going to work where I'm like, oh, I wonder if my dog's alone. Or like, what would they be doing? Or like, when you're buying cutesy things for your
Oh,
dog,
yeah.
it was just they changed my entire life for the better, and I would never have it any other way. I don't want to remember what life was like before them. A lot of people would say this, oh, I would never get a dog because it's just so much hard work, and to each their own, there's no
Mm.
judgment. But I would just say that, our life's too short to not experience loving moments.
That level of love, yes.
So I'm sure you agree as well, because you've had bugs longer than
Absolutely.
me. Yeah.
But I do believe your first pug just has that extra special, like, part of your heart, and, like, Fat Dog was always mine, even when Andrew first moved in, and then there were 6 months of alpha male wars where I think both of them walked away thinking that they won, when in reality, I actually think it was Fat Dog. But similarly, it's the same thing. We've never being able to like, and especially being able to foster rescues as well now, it's something that I've wanted to do for a very long time, but didn't think that I would have the capacity to do it. And now all I've sort of realized now that I've been doing it for a couple of years is that you just and I'm sure parents like this with children, you just figure it out. And sometimes it's easier every time you get a new one and And it is really nice to be able to see the one that you've had for a couple of months or however long they've been with you, going and finding their forever home and knowing that they're going to a home where they will be treated the way that I think that they should be treated, which is like a member
Mm.
of the family. But it's your first pug, I think, just sets the tone for every pug you have thereafter, and you can't help it, you compare them. As I was saying before, like, when we first got Winston and Charles, I looked at Winston, I thought, "Oh, he'll be exactly like Fat Dog," and he was nothing like it, and it took me a good 12 months before, like, it finally sunk in that, "No, no, this is Winston, he is his own pug, he does his own thing, he is naughty the way Fat Dog never was, but Fat Dog had been abused for years and years and years, so he
Mm.
never got to be naughty because that was not." Whereas Winston and Charles came to us when they were 2. So, although they'd had a really rough first 18 months before they went to pug rescue and were rehabilitated, they got a really good life thereafter, and
Mm.
it's so telling when you see, and you can see it in the pugs when you're walking down the street. You can tell a pug that is loved by its family and a pug that is considered a dog. Um,
Mm.
and it's always heartwarming when I meet new people and they tell me about, and I can ask a question like, "Tell me about their personality," and you will talk about it for 10 minutes, and I will go, "That is a parent that knows their pug." They just, and believe me, like, I reckon if we could ask our pugs, they would literally be going, "So, Mum's an artist and she paints me all the time, and which we will get to in a minute, and she knows that my favorite treat is this, and she knows that if I drop a toy at her feet, she knows exactly how to play with it." And I think that's the beauty about the relationship between a pug and a parent, is that there's just this inherent knowledge. This is exactly this is our relationship, this is how we do it, and we feed into it, and it's natural.
And I think you're so spot on with that because I was thinking it's not just that it's the conversations that you're having with your family members. It's the conversation you're having as a couple that is so spotlighted on the dog that you're like, this is not a dog for me anymore. This is my child. Like this is
We
a
we plan
god
our
child.
holidays around where the pugs can stay.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Like it's literally, yeah, 100%.
Oh, yes. So, the last thing that I do wanna talk about, 'cause, I Andrew and I have, so we met you at Pugmas last year
Yeah.
where you were selling your beautiful artwork. So, your business is Artsy Brown Lady,
Yes.
and Andrew brought me one of your T-shirts, and so we were guessing who it was on the front of the Pug Life T-shirt, because he saw it and he went, "Well, Donna has a podcast called The Pug Life Show, and Gurvinder has a T-shirt that's got Pug Life on it, and it's a black pug. I've got to get that for Donna."
And
Beautiful.
he was so excited when he was buying it. I remember he's like, "She's gonna love it."
It
Like
was
the confidence she
wonderful.
had.
It
She's
was
gonna love
wonderful.
it.
I've actually got it hanging up in my office to so that I could look at it, because now having spoken to you, I think the pug is espresso.
Yes, it is
Ah,
espresso.
yes.
Because espresso is probably the only one who can sit still enough with the goggles, with the sunnies on his face
Yes.
and get a photo taken. Like he really is a model pug. Like I said, he's like this bougie pug who would I have put like scarves around him.
Yep.
I have put him in beanies, and he genuinely loves getting
Well,
photos taken.
I have bougie pugs too, so I'm there with you.
You should see his birthday photos this year. We because he's like, he can't jump anymore. But we were like, we want to, like, we brought him his birthday cake on a separate table, and I wanted to take his photo. So we put him on this armchair and he did not move. We took like good 20, 30 photos, different angles. He was just like, yes, please.
That's yes.
I'm calm and composed. Like, this is amazing. So he's actually in the both the photos is espresso. So there's the Pug Life, which is, a pun on Thug Life.
Yep.
So he's kind of looking a little bit thuggy there. And then there's the Puggle is real shirt where he
Oh,
is
yes, yes.
sleeping, and he actually was just like, he was so sweet. I was making my bed and he was refusing to leave. And then at one point, like, the bed is completely made, but Espresso hasn't moved.
Mhm.
And we were just like, this is such a cute, like, so we took that photo. And then I was thinking about, the Puggle is real. I'm like, you know what? Espresso, yes. And it's so easy to, as an artist, often, especially Artsy Brown Lady, wasn't really, I think it was formed around COVID. So the tones of the brand are very around activism and,
Mhm.
some of the struggles that I have experienced being in Australia. And at that moment, it was like struggles we were all going through in lockdown. But over time, I have incorporated joy in my artwork, and nothing gives me more joy than the two pugs. So yes, I have put them both in that. Martini, like I said, doesn't sit still enough. So Espresso is the face of
Ah,
Pug Life, and I think
that's
more artwork to come. Yeah.
Oh, good, because that was actually going to be my 'cause, I've scrolled through your shop and just beautiful artwork, I absolutely love it, and I thought to myself, "Oh, there's a little bit of Bobby." Oh, the other thing is that your partner in the photo with Espresso with the T-shirt?
No, no, that's just a mock-up. Um,
Ah,
but they do have a lot of photos together. Though that one's just a mock-up. And I think that was a very clever mock-up because it's kinda really encapsulating.
yes. I love
Um,
the one where the guy's sticking his tongue out and Espresso's looking off like, "Who the hell are you?"
that was a really cool one, yeah, for sure.
I
But
don't
yeah,
know
the
you.
shirts, I think for Pugmas, we were just like, I reckon the shirts would be a really good one, and yeah, they were really popular that particular day, I
Not
remember.
surprised. I am not surprised. As I said, I've got mine there. It's a little bit too cold just to wear a T-shirt, so
Yes,
I
true.
thought I will hang it up there, so it'll definitely remind me because I thought as I said, Andrew and I were, like, trying to figure out who was the pug supermodel for it, and your description of espresso, I went, "It's gotta be espresso. There's no two ways about that because he's even got, like, the little grey chin.
Yes, yeah.
I do love it when they sort of get that little grey it just puts more was it contrast on their face, which
Yeah, and it's kinda like, "Oh, this pug has seen some some
has
days."
been around.
Yes. Yes, yeah.
Oh, no. So, Espresso and Martini have an Instagram site? An
Yes,
Instagram page?
they have an Instagram page. I think it's called
So,
Espresso the Pug.
Martini the Pugs, yes.
Yes,
Our
and we
Amber
changed it
following.
to Espresso Martinis, yeah. But I think originally it was, yeah, Espresso Martini the Pugs. Yeah.
Lovely. And then the Artsy Brown Lady, you're on Instagram and Facebook?
Yes.
I definitely know Instagram because that was where I was checking out all the latest
Yeah,
stuff.
we have
And
recently moved to Etsy as well, just to reach more
ah,
people, and that it's very recent, so I actually haven't even, like, posted about it. But, yeah, so we've had the Artsy Brown Lady website, we've got the Instagram, and they're still available. And like I had mentioned, like this particular range, I had a particular focus that if we keep getting sales, we keep donating them. So
mhm,
we're donating every sale, 50% of the profit goes to Pug Rescue. So the first time that we did it at Pugmas, we were able to donate close to 100 to 150 to Pug Rescue, which is
beautiful.
like just for me, something that I just want to continuously keep doing because they're doing such great work.
All
And I want to be,
volunteers.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, anyone that purchases also supports Pug Rescue.
No, thank you so much. And at the start of the show, before we actually started recording, I did say that, we would be talking for easily 30 minutes, and we've been talking for way longer than that, so,
Oh,
um,
yes.
I'm but that's the great thing that I love about talking to pug parents is that It's so easy to talk about them. And it's been wonderful getting to know espresso, I'm terrible with my pronunciation, and Martini, and hopefully I haven't been over to WhittlePug for a while, so I'll have to make my way over so
Yes,
the
we're
puppies can all
definitely
have a
coming.
play.
Yes, we're coming this month, so that's next week. But yeah, I know it's a little bit cold, so even if you can come next the month
Yes,
after.
put a
Mhm.
jumper on. Either that or Pug Rescue is doing an indoor movie night at the end of June, so that's just
Ooh,
come out. We just
yes,
released the event over the weekend, so but there'll be
that
there'll
would
be
be
more posts
exciting.
about that. Pardon?
That would be exciting. An indoor movie night with all these pugs.
It's yeah, leash free indoor area, so you can sit on your outdoor chair and we'll watch a movie which everyone has to vote on. And then basically it's pug and parent movie night, even with popcorn or
Oh my
popcorn, I should
god, I
say.
can imagine Martini going up to the screen and trying to catch. This is her latest shenanigan. She has started to identify the screen and just goes like, so I if my husband's playing his video games, she like he's gaming and she's actually following their character. So if the character goes off screen, she's genuinely worried. She's like, where did
Oh,
this thing
oh my
go?
god,
It's
where's
just yeah,
he going? Come
so
back.
funny.
Pouring the TV yet? That's what
Yes,
always
yes.
worries me, yes,
She
is that
has
one
on
day
one
you'll be
yeah, one occasion she has actually shaken it quite a bit. So we're just like, Martini, come
Yes.
back.
We don't need
Yeah.
70 centimeters of a flat pug.
Yes. Please, please come back.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It's been wonderful getting to know you and Espresso and Martini. And I will make sure that all of the details, both for their Instagram page and also the Artsy Brown Lady, so people can buy their Pug Life t-shirt themselves or mug, and they can look as cool as I do when it's not cold and it's warm enough to wear a t-shirt.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me as well. I've never had so much fun in a conversation and never felt like I can just talk about my dogs for that long because, yeah, social expectations. But it's always great to just come together and talk about these little things that bring us so much joy.
No. Thank you. And we
Mm.
will catch you in the next playgroup.
Yes, absolutely. I look forward to meeting Kenji and Rosie both because I know I was just spoiling Kenji on the day of Pugmas.
Oh, he
Said
loves it.
so much.
Yes. See you soon.
See ya.
I think it is safe to say that a pug parent is the type of parent that would move house to give their pug a better pug life because they've been diagnosed with a condition that meant that stairs were off limits. Gurvinder is a 1 in a million pug mum for doing that for Espresso, and he is a lucky puggy to have her as a mum. Now, we'd love to continue our conversation over in our Facebook group, Living the Pug Life, because I know there are more 1 in a million pug parents out there, and there are probably more puggies with IVDD as well who can share more about the condition and their experiences with it so far. And if you like the episode or you think someone else might enjoy it, please share it and leave a review with your favourite podcast host so more pug parents can find us and join in with the fun. It only takes a couple of seconds to give us a 5-star review, and it goes a long way to helping other pug parents find us. So until next time, thank you for joining us. Have a pawsome week, and humans, be generous with the snackies.